It's the Election Day 2017 edition of Weather for Weather Geeks. Hope you've had a good Tuesday, everyone. Our weather today was kind of November-ish. Cloudy, chilly, had a few sprinkles and maybe a stray snowflake or two earlier on today, but overall just kind of a classic November day. Wanted to revisit the severe weather one more time because the National Weather Service provided some news for us today on not only the survey results in Boardman, but an update up in southeastern Trumbull County as well. Not a tornado in Boardman. I'm a little surprised by that, given how impressive the rotation looked to be on the radar Sunday evening. But nonetheless, they classified this as a downburst or a microburst. Microbursts and macrobursts are both downbursts. It's just macro is a bigger one than a micro. This most likely a microburst in Boardman, and just kind of a quick reminder of what these things are. It's basically just a column of air rushing out of a thunderstorm cloud nearly vertically and then slamming into the ground and splat. It has nowhere to go but out and in all directions. The air fans out, and these can be somewhat benign but sometimes extremely strong, and the Weather Service estimated the winds in Boardman around the Sweeney dealership and other areas around that zone, 90 to 100 miles per hour with that. So that meant some serious business. That's the equivalent of an EF1 tornado. So, whether it's a tornado or not doesn't matter. The structures don't care. Wind is wind. And this was the equivalent of, a low-end tornado. Now, up in southeastern Trumbull around Williamsfield, this originally was classified as a macroburst. But the Weather Service did some additional surveying of the damage. And the damage up here is pretty extreme. I mean, the pictures are really something. And they saw enough evidence in kind of their second pass-through here that this, in fact, was a tornado. And this was the general path of it, the red line here. This originated west of Route 7 and picked up intensity as it rolled into Williamsfield. And the EF2 damage was mostly confined to this area right here, just east of Route 7. And then it kind of paralleled or ran right along Route 322 and then did kind of a sharp left before dying right before Pymatooning, the lake. And so this, in fact, was a tornado. And again, a little surprised because of the radar presentation. The radar presentation looked more like a downburst. So kind of the opposite situation in Boardman. But that's why the Weather Service comes out and looks at the ground truth. Radar only tells us some. You got to have some ground truth. You got to look at what actually happened on the ground. Some stats here with this tornado. This was an EF2. Wind speeds estimated about 125 to 130 miles per hour. This was on the ground a long time, 7 miles. The average width of the tornado, about 150 yards. I looked back at the record books here, and for our viewing area and areas very close to our viewing area, and of course southeastern Ashtabula County is very close to being technically in our viewing area, this was the strongest tornado in our region since November 2002. Interesting, that was also a November situation. So it goes to show you, it doesn't have to be springtime for us to have strong tornadoes in this part of the country. This almost 15 years to the day kind of mirrored that situation back in Mercer County in western PA in 2002. You may remember this. This originated around Sharpsville back on November 10th, 2002, went up across the reservoir, and then eventually fizzled northeast of there. This caused a lot of damage, homes destroyed back in 2002 in Mercer County. All right, down in southeastern parts of Columbiana County. This was a tornado from the start, right when they surveyed it. This, of course, was near Calcutta. I have the path here on the red arrow. Started kind of in a very unpopulated area, and thankfully it started to fizzle before it got into more of a population center in Calcutta, or else the damage certainly would have been more extensive. The stats on this Calcutta tornado, wind speeds 90 miles per hour, EF1. It was on the ground for about a mile, and the width was about 1/10 of a mile. So that's kind of a recap and closing the book on the big time severe weather event we had 2 days ago on Sunday. All right, the sky is clearing tonight. It's turning colder. If you're an early riser tomorrow, just before daybreak, good time to look east. Check out a couple of bright planets. Venus especially noticeable. Jupiter is lower in the sky, almost directly below Venus. closer to the horizon, but it'll still be noticeable. Not as bright as Venus, but still pretty bright. So check out this pairing of planets with a mostly clear sky tomorrow morning just before daybreak. So around 6:15, 6:30 or so. Good time to check that out. All right, as far as the weather today, again, pretty cloudy day. We had a couple of sprinkles around this morning, no big deal. This produced some snow, some wet snow, especially in the elevation, in the higher terrain over in Pennsylvania. You know, if you've ever been into central PA, the terrain gets pretty high through here, crossing the Turnpike and crossing Interstate 80. The highest point on I-80 east of the Mississippi is over in here, closer to the Clearfield area. Elevations here get up to 2,000, 2,500 feet along some of these ridges, and they got dusted with some snow today. With that precipitation moving through. Only one report from the Weather Service this afternoon as far as an official number. Up in the higher terrain, close to the Poconos and northeastern PA, about an inch worth of wet snow up there. Well, speaking of cold and winter, here we go. Let's take a look at Canada. The cold is building. And, this is in stark contrast to this time last year. Last year at this time, all the cold was across the pole in Asia. This year, the cold is really building quickly up in Canada and up closer to the Arctic Circle in the northern territories of Canada. There's teens below zero up here. Nothing real unusual, but certainly a big contrast to last year. And a chunk of that is getting set to come south for the end of the week. Tomorrow's a brighter day. Sunshine for most of the day. A fairly sunny day coming up on Thursday as well. Now, here's our Arctic front Thursday afternoon. Might have to stick in a late day shower possibility, depending on what other models are spitting out later on this evening. But nonetheless, any liquid precipitation is quickly going to give way to snow showers Thursday night into Friday. It's going to feel like the middle of winter on Friday. It's going to look like January. It's going to feel like January. I've taken down our high to 30, and that's only part of the story with the wind. Yeah, wind chills. These are Friday afternoon's wind chills, upper teens. And Friday night into Saturday morning, even though the wind will diminish quite a bit, the wind chill will still be a handful of degrees cooler than the air temperature. I've got a low of 19 in the forecast for the air temperature. Even if there's only a 4-mile-per-hour wind, you can get a wind chill down to 13 or 14 degrees. And there will be some snow showers around, not looking for much impact at all here in our local viewing area. Wouldn't be surprised if an inch or two worth of snow was found in the main snow belt, Lake Geauga, Ashtabula. A couple inches of possibility from Erie and Crawford County, PA, over into Chautauqua and Cattaraugus counties in New York, maybe up towards the Finger Lakes as well. That's all on Friday into Friday night and maybe early Saturday up in New York. All right, longer range. I think temperatures will rebound. Rebound next week. Close to, if not above average for a handful of days. The 8 to 14 day outlook, though, kind of beyond the 7-day forecast, and this would start second half of next week and then taking us into the week of Thanksgiving. Notice I have us near average, but that only tells part of the story. In this 6-day chunk, we might have some mild weather to start, but I think it's going to start getting colder as we head towards Thanksgiving. Some of the latest modeling is looking pretty cold the week of Thanksgiving. So even though average is shown on the map here, that may be balanced by some mild air to start and some cold air to finish. The cold is really building, as I mentioned, off to the north and west into Canada, and it's only a matter of time before chunks of that come farther south and east with more frequency, and that could happen at the end of November. And heading into December, I might have to revise my December forecast, which we just came out with 9 or 10 days ago. But the models are trending colder for the end of the month and into December, so December might end up being colder than originally advertised. Stay tuned for more details on that. Thanks for checking out Weather for Weather Geeks tonight. Full election coverage tonight on 21 News at 11, and I'll see you back here tomorrow evening.